Good morning, all of my Great Gatsby enthusiasts. Hey, it's Mr. Bradley again, and we are going to do a quick run through for a summary of Chapter 2 of The Great Gatsby. So, in Chapter 2, today we meet two new characters. We meet George Wilson and Myrtle Wilson, and we find out just how morally corrupt Tom Buchanan really is. So Nick and Tom supposedly are on their way into the city to go to lunch at with some of their college buddies, and the train gets stuck in what's called the Valley of Ashes. Now, the Valley of Ashes was actually a very real place. The primary source of power generation was used for burning coal. And I don't know if anybody's ever worked with coal ash before, but the stuff is very sticky, very greasy, and it tends to get into everything. And they needed something to do with all of this coal ash. Well, in the first part of the 20th century, they started dumping the coal ash along the Hudson River in this area here. You can see where there's a road that goes through here, and you can see where there's a train track that goes through here as well. The train cars would pull up through here and they would actually just dump the coal ash here, and it polluted the Hudson River and it made everything look really nasty. And then as New York City started to grow, you had all these very affluent suburbs that popped up on the other side of the Valley of Ashes. So you had to go from these really nice suburbs, these really affluent neighborhoods, through the Valley of Ashes to get into the city where the jobs were, where you made your money, all of that stuff. Well, today, this is what's known as the Flushing Meadows Corona Park area of New York City. All of that coal ash was tilled under, and they actually did the 1939 and 1964 World's Fair in this location. The whole area is a park area now, and it's still set up with a lot of the original buildings and structures from the 1939 World's Fair. But Fitzgerald uses this as symbolism for the moral decay that's necessary to pass through in order to make the money to live in these beautiful neighborhoods. Valley of Ashes represents the moral decay of the 20s. The other big symbol that's used in this chapter are the eyes of Dr. TJ Eckleburg. Now, TJ Eckleburg was an oculist, an optometrist, an eye doctor, and he made this billboard as a way to help generate money. The billboard has started to fade and the paint has started to peel. Whoever knows what happened to Dr. TJ Eckleburg, the billboard has been long forgotten. But the billboard sits these two huge blue eyes. The irises are a yard tall, gold metal frames over a noseless face. These are symbolic of the eyes of God. They are watching everything. They see everything in the Valley of Ashes. So if this billboard watches over everything and sees everything in the Valley of Ashes, this is symbolic of the eyes of God watching over the moral decay of a decade. So Fitzgerald uses this as a huge part of symbolism. Not only that, but the most morally corrupt portions of the novel involve people traveling through the Valley of Ashes to get to their destination, including Nick and Tom. They decide they're going to get off the train here because it's stuck. And they end up meeting George Wilson. Now, George Wilson is supposed to be a business partner of Tom's. He owns this garage in the Valley of Ashes. Tom is supposed to be selling him a car. He's married to Myrtle Wilson, and he's really not the smartest guy in the world. He's very kind of lethargic. He doesn't show any kind of life or passion or excitement. You know, he's symbolic of the people who live and work in the Valley of Ashes, who are going through this moral decay. When Tom and Nick walk up to the garage, Tom says, "Hey, how you doing there, Wilson?" He's like, "Oh, I guess I can't complain." You know, I mean, the guy's got like no life to him. But he also shows how Tom treats people who he thinks are beneath him. Tom's got a set of brass ones on him. Seriously, he shows up at his business partner's place of work Now, George and Myrtle live in an apartment above the garage. And he shows up here in the middle of the day to pick up his mistress. And Nick says, well, aren't you concerned that he's going to find out? Tom replies on page 30, he says, Wilson's so dumb he doesn't know he's alive. We're really supposed to feel sorry for this guy. I mean, he doesn't even know that Tom is taking advantage of him. Well, and then we meet Myrtle Wilson. And Myrtle is not supposed to be a pretty woman. Nick describes her as faintly stout and having no facet or gleam of beauty, but there was an immediately perceptible vitality. It's like every nerve was just sparking. It's like she is oozing sexuality as she comes walking down these stairs. Now, Myrtle Wilson is supposed to represent everything that is fun and exciting about the decade of the 20s. She is this passionate woman who just kind of goes with it and does whatever feels right in the moment. She obviously wears the pants in the marriage. I mean, she orders Wilson around like nobody's business. Now, she's very unhappy in her marriage. Now, Tom doesn't want to be seen with her right away, so he says, hop on the next train, meet us at the apartment. We find out that Tom and Myrtle have this little love shack set up in the city. We get there, she wants to get a dog, so they buy a dog before they go upstairs, and Nick's very uncomfortable. He's like, I really should probably go. And Tom says, no, Myrtle's going to be upset if you don't come upstairs. We'll call her Sister Catherine. That's who this is, the redhead right here. That's Catherine. And Myrtle apparently has another wardrobe here. She changes her clothes for the third time. We see it's packed to the gills with art and artwork and furniture. Now, Catherine shows up, so do the McKees, and they party the afternoon away. And here, Catherine asks Nick where he lives. And Nick says, well, I live in West Egg. She says, oh, I was just to a party there not too long ago. You know a guy named Gatsby? Once again, we get this guy mentioned by a female character and we've never even met him really yet. But look at the two characters who have mentioned Gatsby so far. You have Jordan, who is obviously an upper class woman, and you have Catherine, who obviously is not. And this tells us really that anybody who's anybody shows up at one of Gatsby's parties, and it doesn't matter what your social class is, everybody shows up at Gatsby's place. So Nick thinks about this as they continue to kind of party the afternoon away. You find out that Tom has concocted this elaborate lie and says that Catherine says that Tom won't divorce Daisy because she's Catholic, and Catholics don't believe in divorce. Nick's surprised by how elaborate this lie is because Daisy's not Catholic. Now, Tom is never going to divorce Daisy for one simple reason. They are of the same social class. Myrtle is not. She is a lower class woman, and yeah, she might be fun for Tom to fool around with, but he would never marry her. You start to see really the divide in social class at this point in the novel. It also, you see the divide within the social class. Old money versus new money. West Egg is new money. And new money is not as good as old money, which is what Tom and Daisy are. So Daisy is the pretty little trophy wife who Tom can escort to the country club and he can show her off. And Myrtle is just the side piece. And that's all she's ever going to be. But Myrtle thinks that there's some future in all of this. And later on in the evening, as everybody gets drunker and tensions start to build a little bit, Tom very casually breaks Myrtle's nose. She mentions Daisy's name, and on page 41, there's one line. As making a short, deft movement, Tom Buchanan broke her nose with his open hand. He open hand slaps her hard enough to break her nose. Now, Fitzgerald could have described this in like brutal detail. but he doesn't. He gives us one line. And he does that just to emphasize the casual brutality of it all. This is how Tom treats people who he sees as beneath him. He doesn't care. He'll hurt them, he'll walk all over them. This is meant to emphasize how horrible of a person Tom Buchanan really is and why we are not supposed to like him. That even in his drunken state, though, Nick can't stay here. He actually leaves with Chester McKee, goes down to his apartment, checks out some photos, and then he leaves. This is meant to, again, to emphasize the difference between Nick and everybody else. This place is against his good Midwestern morals and values, and he can't be seen with these kinds of people. So that's it there, guys, for chapter 2. Now, make sure that you're keeping up on the reading. Make sure you're answering one of those question clusters for each chapter, and I will collect those at the end of the book. Keep reading, guys. I hope you're enjoying The Great Gatsby as much as I do.